So today I want to talk about something on this channel that I actually haven't talked about yet. A franchise that I haven't touched because, quite honestly, the fans are very passionate about the ships and technology from this franchise, and I'm terrified of making a mistake, but it's really the only way to learn. So today we're going to talk about the USS Kelvin from Star Trek. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, like the name suggests, the USS Kelvin is a cruiser, likely, we don't really know for sure the ship type it was designed to fill, serving in the Federation Starfleet in the 23rd century. It was dispatched on various missions of exploration, like what we see at the opening of the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek film. During one of these explorations, it was lost during an engagement with the Narada, but we'll get more to that later. Let's talk about the specifics and technicalities of this vessel. For starters, most of the numbers we have are a little bit looser than numbers seen elsewhere. Not only is there a debate about the size of these ships, because it keeps getting retconned, but they're generally are said to be more than this number, so bear with me here. We know it had at least 800 crew members because 800 crew members survived the engagement with the Narada. However, it likely had more than that since we do see the Kelvin taking casualties during that engagement. The ship is armed with a total of 4 phaser banks, each containing 2 phaser turrets, 1 phaser bank mounted on each side of the top of the saucer and 1 mounted on each side of the bottom of the saucer, as well as 6 banks of turreted torpedo launchers, which could fire multiple torpedoes in rapid succession. These are similarly mounted on the top and bottom of the saucer section of the vessel. Also, similarly to the PDCs in the Expanse, these turrets retract into the vessel when they're not being used, so when we see Star Trek ships, particularly from the Kelvin timeline, but even elsewhere in the franchise, when they're not in combat, we often see their weapons stowed, so they're not quite as apparent. Engineering-wise, the Kelvin consisted of a single saucer section with a single warp nacelle mounted underneath the saucer section, and above the saucer section was the secondary engineering hull, which had, at the aft of it, the ship's Shuttle Bay, and at the front of it, the ship's deflector dish. Like many other ships in the Star Trek universe, the bridge is mounted on the top of the saucer section with a sensor suite mounted on the bottom, opposite of the bridge. Most of the day-to-day life of the crew would take place within the saucer section, which sort of served as the primary hull of the vehicle, while most of the engineering crew, working on things like the ship's primary warp core or various engineering aspects, would be working in the secondary hull or the aft section of the saucer in this particular case. An interesting tidbit about the Shuttle Bay on the Kelvin is that it actually is unpressurized. If you pay close attention to the few scenes that the Kelvin is present in the film, you can see that the shuttlecraft are accessed via docking tubes, which are likely completely airtight. As a result, the actual space inside of the hangar bay is unpressurized and a vacuum, which is inhospitable to life as we know it. On top of these features, it's safe to assume that the Kelvin contained a lot of these similar facilities that we would see across other ships in Starfleet. Things like sick bays, and we actually do know that the Kelvin had a sick bay, we do very briefly see it on screen, but also science labs, mess halls, crew lodging, stuff like that, which you would expect on any starship, really, but you would particularly expect to see on ships in Starfleet, including things like transporter rooms and armories and so on and so forth. Now, we only know of one vessel of this class, although there likely were more, and that one vessel is the Kelvin. The Kelvin was constructed in 2225 in San Francisco, California. Now, it's not clear whether it was constructed in orbit over San Francisco or on the ground around the city. It could be either. However, less than 10 years later, at least in the Kelvin timeline, in 2233, the ship would encounter the Narada while on an expedition exploring unknown space. During this expedition, they encountered what appeared to be a black hole, and while they were observing it, a vessel emerged from what turned out to be a wormhole created in the 24th century, that ship being the Romulan mining ship, the Narada, which, albeit being a non-military vessel, still outmatched the Kelvin based on a century of technological advancement. The end result was that the Kelvin was ultimately destroyed in an engagement with the Narada, and would inseparably alter the timeline, creating the alternate universe that is the Kelvin universe. I'd definitely like to dive more into Star Trek, but let me know down in the comments whether you want to see more discussions about Star Trek, or would you prefer I keep it to Star Wars and The Expanse and Halo and the franchises I've already been talking about. And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Trek or Star Wars or any other franchise, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.